Alright, so today I wanted to make a little video about government spending, debt, welfare, all that crazy stuff that goes on these days. So anyway, this is from the usgovernmentspending.com, and basically they ask in fiscal year 2021, total US government spending on welfare, federal, state, and local is guesstimated to be 1.153 billion or otherwise 1.15 trillion, including 688 billion for Medicaid and 465 for other forms of welfare. Now, this is a very telling thing because again, when you ask a lot of these lefties, specifically the more far lefties, is that their idea is the only reason that poverty exists and the only reason the wealth gap is so big is because we don't give enough money to poor people, right? Like we don't tax the rich enough. Like that's pretty much what they say. But on the flip side, if it the only thing causing this is just a little bit of money, then why hasn't this been fixed? Like in the States, since the war on poverty, I think the number is over $20 trillion has been poured into welfare spending. But yet, has the problem gotten any better? I mean, in some ways, but it's largely a technological thing in that, even if you're poor nowadays, you have access to heat and running water and electricity and all that kind of stuff. But not because of the government. It's not because of the government. It's because of the free market, essentially. Again, because did the government invent air conditioners? Did the government invent furnaces? Did the government invent the light bulb? Did the government invent cell phones? Did the government invent computers? Did the government invent any of these things? No, they didn't. They were all private individuals or entrepreneurs, right? So this idea that the only thing holding them back is a little bit of money in welfare is absolute insanity. I mean, the other thing to point out here too is that another really big fallacy you hear when it comes to healthcare, especially from Canadians, is that they think that the U.S. is 100% a free market system. Like it's 100% free market. If you don't got insurance or you can't afford to pay for it, and you come to the emergency room, they'll toss you out on the curb. That's not true. I mean, it is kind of muddy, but they spend 688 billion on Medicaid, right? That's essentially money going towards to subsidize healthcare, right? So, I mean, if you look at it in the States, I believe in the numbers about half of every dollar spent on healthcare is some form of government assisted healthcare, right? So the States is at most halfway of a free market. I think it's safe to say it's probably like 30-40%. So when people say, "Oh, well, in Alberta," this is like one of the only things that these lefties complain about when it comes to Jason Kenney, and it really shocks me because there's a lot better things to complain about when it comes to Jason Kenney. But nonetheless, the only thing they care about is socialism, and anytime you try and take a step away from socialism, they'll accuse you of being you're just getting rid of the whole system. You're burning it all down, right? Like you want to have the option of going to a charter school. Oh, you want to destroy public schools. No more public schools. You want to have a private option when it comes to healthcare. You want no more public healthcare. Like this is literally what these people think. Like go read through Jason Kenney's his comments on his tweets. Like this is literally what these people think. Like they're so insane, it's not even funny. But again, according to these people, the reason why they believe what they believe is they're not actually insane. The reason they believe what they believe is that these people genuinely believe that a socialist system is moderate on the political scale. Now, again, to most people that sounds insane, but to them that doesn't. Because again, these are the same people. Now, I follow many of these people on social media, like many of them. Like I spend actually a good amount of time trying to figure out what these people think and why they think it. A lot of time, I mean, there's almost next to no logic behind it, but nonetheless, one of these people that I follow the other day was talking about Justin Trudeau and how he's too far to the right. Like he's too far to the right, even though objectively the liberals in Canada, and the same goes for the Democrats in the States, they've moved pretty far to the left over the last 10 to 20 years. Like if you'd have told a moderate liberal 20 years ago the average the liberal positions nowadays, they would tell you that they're too far to the right. Some of them were even too far to the right. Sorry, too far to the left. Too far to the left. I meant that's what would be happening. You think about it from a logical perspective. the majority of liberals were not pro gay marriage until like the mid two, even at the time Barack Obama wasn't even for gay marriage when he got elected. He changed his mind halfway through. So again, not only nowadays do you have to be for gay marriage, which again most people are, even on the right. Nowadays you have to be for, if I want to wake up one day, I've been a man my entire life and I want to go compete in women's sports, I should have the right to do that, right? If I'm 5 and I think I was born male and I want to be a female, I should be able to make that decision, right? If you're 4 or 5 years old, you're competent enough to make that decision, right? These are the issues. Like if you'd have told someone that 20 years ago, no matter where you were on the political spectrum, everybody would have been against that, right? Like the vast majority of people would have been against that. But now, if you're on the left and that's not your position, then they don't like you. They'll kick you out. So again, that's just an example. I mean, not to mention too the other thing, like back in the 2000s, it was kind of all hip and trendy to be, I'm fiscally conservative and socially liberal, right? Nowadays nobody's fiscally conservative. Like nobody's fiscally conservative. So again, the left has moved from back in the 2000s, most people, I would say it's actually probably 70-80% of people believing that the left was too far to the left when it came to spending, but yet now you have these same people that think that a government that has already moved very far to the left on an issue they were already too far to the left for the majority of people to support isn't far left enough. Just imagine they were already too far to the left for most people. Again, I'll explain it again. They're already too far to the left for most people. They moved to the left because again, the deficits now are way larger than then. The welfare spending is way larger now than it is then. And for these people, it isn't even far enough to the left, right? So moving to the left and then moving to the left further isn't even far enough to the left for these people. Like that's where they're at. So again, that's just something I wanted to bring up. But nonetheless, the whole point being is that if poverty could simply be fixed by throwing money at the poor, it would have happened by now. It would have happened by now. The reason that it hasn't happened by now is that we are in the West, we are essentially subsidizing poverty, right? Like take the classic example. If you're a single mother who has a kid with a terrible guy, anybody with half a brain wouldn't have had a kid with him, but because the government's going to pay you to have that kid, because again, in I believe like 35 to 40 states, you get more money on welfare than you do making minimum wage. And if you have 2 or 3 kids, then you're making that much more. Like in a lot of these states, you're making the equivalent to like 50, 60 grand a year. I think California being one of them, if you're a single mother with like 2 or 3 kids that qualifies for all these programs. So if you're already making 50, 60 grand, I mean, that's what? Double minimum wage, maybe a little bit more, a little less, depending on where you're at. Why in the world would you want to get a job? Like, why in the world would you want to get a job? So again, I understand it from these people's perspective, right? Because you're already making more than what you would be making working, and a lot of these people that they're not as smart. They're pretty low intelligence. So again, it's very unlikely that they ever get past slightly more than minimum wage. Maybe it's a little bit more, but they're almost guaranteed to not get more than where they're at on welfare. And here's the thing too, like welfare you get no matter what. Like work, you got to show up and you got to give your time, right? So if you're getting, let's say, 2,000 a month on welfare, then to make it worth your while to go to work, you probably have to get at least 25, I would say probably upwards of 3,000 to make it worth to go off welfare. And for a lot of people that may not even be enough. A lot of people it might even be 3,500, 4,000, right? But that's double. Because again, if you're not working, well you're saving a lot of money between, you know, going back and forth to work. You have other time to do stuff. So I mean, personally, like if let's just say I had, the government was giving me that money, I'd have to get at least probably 2,500 or 3,000 to make it worth it. But again, thinking from these people's perspective, I'm talking about. So again, it makes sense. But again, the problem being is that when you give people free money, it becomes which is like I always bring up to. This is one of the main reasons why you have generation after generation of, especially in the States, these people living in the ghettos. Because again, like why would you work when that's all you've seen? Like you see your mom grow up getting money from the government. I mean, they weren't exactly rich, but they got by. Like, why in the world would you want to work? Like, this, a lot of this stuff is genetic too. Like, a lot of it is genetic. The girls see, oh, well, my mom didn't pick a successful, or a guy that stuck around and she turned out all right. Well, I'm not going to do it. The guy sees, the boys see that and see, like, oh, there's no value in actually having meaningful relationships, and the problem just persists and persists and persists, and it grows and it grows and it grows. And this is why the government has to spend more and more and more money on these programs, and eventually the entire thing goes belly up, or they just deflate the currency to an extent where it goes belly up, one or the other, right? Because again, when you have these programs, you're in a nutshell paying people to be poor. And when you do that, you only get more of it, right? Because again, this is just basic human psychology. If you subsidize something, you will get more of it. If you make it, financially, I mean, if you take money away from people for doing something, you're going to get less of it. And now we are paying people to be on welfare and to be net drains on the system, so we're going to get more of it. And we tax the what out of the most productive people, so you're going to get less of it. I mean, it's very simple. Like, it's very. I mean, look at California and New York. Like, these are perfect examples of it. But yet, are any of these people admitting, yeah, we tried the whole far left thing and it's not working? Right? No. I mean, look at New York. You have all these lefties that are, all the solution is to raise taxes on the rich, right? Like, tons of rich people have left New York and California as well. Their solution to it is just more of the same. Like, that, this is the problem. Like, these are the problems. So, anyway, I'm gonna leave the video there. If you like to, make sure you hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. Make sure you follow me on Twitter, especially, but also BitChute and Parler. All those links are in the description, so you can find them all there.